It's a very, very special day for all of us today. And this day and this video is dedicated to all the freedom fighters who helped us to get freedom and to live the lives that we live today. So very happy Independence Day to everybody. And with that, we actually get into something very, very interesting today. We are going to talk about a function which decides your paychecks, a function which decides your salaries, your compensation, and your benefits. And this is a topic which actually excites each and every one of us, in whatever role, in whichever company you're working. And this salary or compensation is handled by a specialist function, which is a subset of HR, known as Compensation and Benefits Specialist, or a Total Reward Specialist, as we call them these days. So today I'm going to talk about top 5 reasons as to why you should take exposure in a compensation and benefits role or in a total rewards role if you are a HR professional. So let's begin. So a lot of people have actually this complaint that HR is a very non-technical function. So let's answer that with the first reason as to why you should take up a compensation and benefits role. And the first reason is exactly what you guessed it, is CNB or compensation and benefits is a technical role. So if you like data analysis, if you like number crunching, if you like analytics, if you like statistical analysis, this is exactly the role that you should be gunning for. And in my experience, I have seen a lot of people who are very high on analytics, who like number crunching, or a lot of HR professionals these days come with engineering background. They like to go for this specialist role in HR. And this is a lifelong career. A lot of people I know who are my seniors, my colleagues, my friends, they have become compensation and benefit specialists purely because they like analytics, and they've made a full career in HR or in CNB in that domain itself. So they join as a CNB specialist, they work in different areas, different industries, and they end their career as CNB specialist or compensation specialist. So number one reason, technical analysis. And this is actually because you will do a lot of stuff around number crunching in this role. So if data analysis, number crunching is your cup of tea, please go for this area or this specialist role. This will really excite you. And if you're not, please don't go for it at all, because this is something which you'll do most of your time. Let's move to the number 2 reason. The number 2 reason as to why you should take up a compensation and benefits role is because it's a very strategic role and it's a corporate HR role. So there is a line HR and there is a corporate HR. So line HR is typically what we talked in our previous videos about plant HR, sales HR, any sort of role where you work for a business, right? But this is a role which is actually part of the corporate HR, which is part of the think tank where you decide the strategy. So clearly CNB or compensation and benefits has to be a strategic role. And why I say that is because if you are a part of compensation and benefits, you better understand the business. You got to understand the business. And by the way, it plays a very important role in doing 3 things for you: in attracting the right talent for your business, in engaging the right talent for your business, keeping the talent engaged once you attract and hire the talent, and in also retaining the talent, right? So these 3 things are very, very important in an employee's life cycle when you hire an employee. And compensation and benefits plays a very big role. And it's an art and a science, right? Deciding salaries is not something that you wake up one day and you decide that this is what I'm going to pay the employee. It's a strategy, right? It's a strategy which you have to decide for a business. A lot of industries, and it varies from industry to industry. Some of the industries want to attract top talent from top colleges, for their companies. So they may choose to pay salaries which are on a higher side, right? Or they may decide to pay the highest salaries in the industry in some cases where it is difficult to attract talent. A lot of startups who hire, they have a strategy to attract top talent from different companies. They like to hire talent from different companies. And the reason they do so is because that is the only way they can attract, because startup is not something which has a brand value. A lot of people don't know what a startup is. So for them, the only way could be they attract on a higher salary, right? That's one way of engaging people. Or of course, apart from the idea which they have, which excites people, which is a breakthrough idea which they want to bring on the table. But a lot of companies may say that I am absolutely okay to hire engineering grads from a tier 2 school. I need not hire super duper smart talent, right? It's a business strategy. Their role may not be complex enough where I need the best of the talent, right? I don't need an aeronautical engineer if I'm manufacturing soaps and detergents. So it is something like that. It's an interesting analogy. So you have to look at the talent that you need for your company and pay the right salary. So I pay the fair salary. And how do you decide that fairness of salary when you look at your competition, or what should be the right business strategy? This whole dynamics of deciding that right figure or the right fairness approach in this context is something that is led by this department, and it is clearly an art and a science. So it's not purely science. There's a lot of it which goes behind that. So deciding salaries is one aspect. Deciding all your policies where you have monetary implications. It could be travel policy, it could be hotel policy, it could be your accident benefits, it could be hospitalization benefits. On how you should be paying versus competition, right, is something which gets decided. And it's a science, like I said. It's a process. It is not something that you decide on an ad hoc basis. So deciding that whole piece becomes very critical, big part of compensation and benefits role. The third reason is, if you are a compensation and benefit specialist, be rest assured you will take a lot of tough calls, because it's impossible to have a situation where you don't take those kind of calls, where you have some sort of salary corrections going on. When a lot of times your businesses will come and say, hey, I want to pay this kind of salary to my people. A lot of times you have to give a pushback. You have to make people unhappy, because the objective is to do the right thing. And a lot of times people will put blame on compensation and benefits and say, hey, they are the guys who decided this much. That's why you as an employee of mine is getting this much salary increment. But the point is, hey, HR recommended it or CNB recommended it. But there is a process behind the whole madness, right? It is not something which happens as a non-business decision. There's obviously a business context to everything that happens. And a lot of times you will take those tough calls. So if you're ready to take those kind of tough calls with businesses, and a lot of times, I may sound harsh by saying tough, but those are right calls. And you should be ready to take that. And if you're ready to take that, you're ready for the role. So this is your number 3 reason. Number 4 reason, you will build a lot of external connections and a lot of internal connections. It's a very, very high visibility role. If you're in corporate HR and you're deciding salaries, guess what? You're working with everybody in the company who's a senior leader. Whether he's a chief marketing officer, whether he's a chief commercial officer, whether he is your CEO or anybody in the company, because you are going to work with everybody in deciding that what should be the right approach here. And that means a lot of high visibility. That means you get a lot of visibility working with so many stakeholders. This is the internal side of it. Let's look at the external side of it. You will get very well networked and very well connected with the industry, because you decide salaries, you work with a lot of external stakeholders. And who are those stakeholders? Those would be companies who do salary benchmarking, because in most of the cases companies don't share your competition is not going to share your salaries with you directly. It happens through a agency, and those agencies or consulting firms in this context would be likes of say Mercer or a Aon Hewitt or a Willis Tower Watson, a lot of other companies who help you in salary surveys, right? Salary benchmarking exercise is what we call it. And in most of these cases, you get to know what's happening in the external world, different benefits being paid, right? So you get externally networked, and internally a very, very high visibility role for you. And you of course pick up the business understanding, because most of these benchmarking exercises will require you to represent your function, represent your company. Hence, important for you to understand what the function does, right? I can't do a job matching exercise externally with a consultant if I don't know what my sales guy does, what size of business he handles, or what kind of complexity or span of control the person handles. So you have to understand the business. That's going to be very important. And of course, when we talk about this, compensation and benefits can have different elements to it. So with major part of being deciding the salaries, deciding the benefits, it could also have different elements of say job evaluation. A lot of times you have to do exercises to understand that if I have to pay this much or X amount to somebody who's doing a certain job, I need to understand the worth of the job, right? The worth of the job becomes equally important. How much complex the job is, how much turnover or revenue I handle in a job, how many direct reports I have in a job, what is the complexity involved. Because a job, and I'm giving you an analogy here, right? A job of a frontline sales guy, a territory manager who sells a business, who's handling a business size of say 5 crores, is way less complex versus a CEO who's handling 2000 crores business with so many direct reports, with so many business decisions, so many multi-functions handling, right? So every job is going to be very different, and you got to understand how you need to pay that. So makes it slightly interesting at the same time. So important is huge opportunity to network. And last but not the least, you should be ready to take criticism. And I say this again and again. I think this is important for not only HR professionals who are always at lot of times have to face a lot of criticism for taking decisions, but as a compensation and benefit specialist, you should be ready to take more of it. And why I say so is that because it's absolutely impossible to have a scenario where each and every person in your company is satisfied with the compensation or the salaries they get. It's never going to happen. So it's always going to be a continuous journey. I think a lot of times you need to build capability of people to understand how, what does, let's say, a comp ratio means in a compensation terminology, or how do you decide the salaries. And I think a lot of times you have to coach your people. You have to really coach your business leaders. You have to coach the people who come to you on how you actually decide things, right? So, but having said that, there are still chances that you can get a lot of criticism that, hey, this company pays this much salary, why don't you pay this much salary? But then you need to make people understand that paying that much salary may not be a strategy for you, right? It could be a completely different approach that you're looking at. So these things become very important when you do a compensation and benefits role. So I think these are, to me, these are some of the top 5 reasons. And in my experience in the past, I have actually led technician compensation surveys in a factory, have worked in a sales and commercial environment. So these are some of the things which I came across, some of the things that have hit home for me. Some of the learnings, some of the frustrations are always there when you do a CNB role, and I think a lot of you will relate to it when I talk about as you hear this. And I would love to hear your comments and your feedback on this, and would be really great. So with that, thank you so much. I think you've been wonderful with your comments and suggestions, and I've been trying to implement a lot of them. So stay in touch, stay safe, stay healthy. Jai Hind.